Hi, I'm Shawn Casemore. Welcome back to another one of my empowerment series videos aimed at helping you help your team achieve peak performance. Today I wanted to discuss how to get your team, and specifically members on your team, to accept and adapt to change. You've probably heard in the past that saying that there are 4 stages that any person goes through when it comes to change. The forming, storming, norming, and performing stages. Now, what tends to happen is that people go through these stages at different speeds, different rates. Therefore, when you're looking at a single change, you'll find you have people at different points. Some people still don't believe the change is going to happen, although it is. Some people are not happy the change is happening. Some people are interested in the change happening and have started to investigate how they can make it work for them. And some have just carried on like nothing ever happened. So you might find that although these stages are quite clear, that sometimes it's very confusing based on the reaction an employee gets when you introduce a change. Meaning you might introduce something you think the employees will find beneficial, and suddenly some people aren't happy about it. Here's what's going on. If you think about most organizations today, there's a lot of change happening. We're not just talking about one initiative, we're talking about multiple initiatives. These can be big changes like implementing a new ERP system. They can be simple changes like changes to process. They can be changes to working hours. All sorts of changes can be happening organizationally. These changes tend to stack themselves on top of one another. Don't forget then, all the people working for you, all the people on your team are also going through changes sometimes in their personal lives. Small changes, big changes, having children, getting married, getting divorced. So what tends to happen as individuals is we've got all this change going on in our lives, and our response and reaction differs, right? We're going through those 4 stages in each and every one of these changes. Here's what tends to happen then. You introduce a change, it's like pulling a lever. Suddenly somebody's going off about a change, and you're either shocked by the fact that they don't like this or don't seem to be on board, or maybe you're shocked by the reaction. You never would have suspected that they wouldn't have adapted this change. Well, here's what I want to suggest to you. If you start to realize that everybody has their own lives, their own experiences, and you realize that these changes are stacking up on each and every person in your organization, this explains why we often get pushback on change. It's not the specific change necessarily, it's the number of changes we're dealing with. Again, either personally, professionally, or both. Luckily, there's something you can do about it. Now, I'm not here to suggest that you can make it so that everybody is always loving every change you ever introduce, but there are some things that effective leaders do on a regular basis to up the odds or up the ante, so to speak, to make sure that their people accept change. 3 things specifically I want you to focus on and add to your agenda. Number 1, one-on-one dialogue, individual dialogue. Now, this dialogue doesn't have to be specifically about changes that are going on, although that may be a question that you insert. But it's, as I've said in previous videos, calendarizing in your calendar time to go around and spend with people on your team one-on-one. Now, if you're the CEO or an executive and they say, wow, there's so many people, I'd never be able to do that. Yes, you can. It might take you 2 years to get through it and to get through everybody and meeting with them, but you can do it. Step 1, set time in your calendar and then use that time to go around and visit with people. Now, you can see how they're doing, get to know them a little bit, but make sure you insert a few questions such as, hey, relative to this working environment, what changes are you working on right now? What's your perspective on those changes? Are things going well? Are these the right things that we should be focused on? If so, why? If not, why not? You see, what you do in this one-on-one dialogue is you start to understand where people's heads are at, and you really start to understand where their heads are at relative to all the changes going on in the organization. I'll never forget one of the jobs I had earlier in my career, probably about 15 years ago now, where there was just constant initiatives coming at myself and my team on a regular basis. HR initiatives, executive initiatives, customer initiatives, supplier initiatives. And it was hard to stay on top of all of it. And hence, my people were stressed out because they didn't know what initiative was going on at any one time. That dialogue is a chance to keep your finger on the pulse, know what's going on, and if necessary, be able to step in and help bring clarity. Now, the second thing to this one-on-one dialogue is group dialogue. We all know that sometimes when we get people into a group, they respond differently. Some people open up more, some people clam up. But by having a group discussion, we want to give them a chance to bring out their concerns, because what really happens in a group setting is that people are talking behind the scenes. When you put them in a group setting, they're going to bring up things that they've talked about. You need to understand this, because it's not always going to come out in the one-on-one dialogue. Think about it. Is one of your employees, when speaking with you, going to tell you exactly what they're thinking? Some of them will, some of them won't. The only way to get some of those people that won't out is in a group discussion where they have more courage and or others are willing to speak to them. So you want to be having step one, one-on-one dialogue to figure out where things are at. But step two, have periodic meetings, maybe even just once a month, where you say, hey, there's a lot of changes going on. Here's the ones I'm aware of. What other changes are you dealing with here at work? What are your perspective on these changes? Are things going well? Where are we failing right now? Where are things not going well? What do you think is a priority here? You need to have that discussion and flush out, once again, where people's heads are at, which gives you the information necessary to identify what do you need to change or do differently to make these changes successful. The third and last tip I'm going to share with you is this. Keep in mind that we've talked a lot about dialogue, face-to-face conversation. If you've got people remotely, you can get online using Zoom or Skype, right, and have the same kind of dialogue. But you also want to be following up and sending periodic communications in written form. Remember that people communicate, and more importantly, absorb communication in different ways using their own personal preferences. I, for example, am very visual. If I came into your facility and you explained a problem, I'd say, show me, because if I see it, I believe it. Some people are audible. If they hear it, they get it. Some people are kinesthetic. They have to experience it personally to really understand it. So you want to keep this in mind when you're dealing with change. You want to communicate verbally, so audible people get it. You want to help people experience and get involved in these group discussions. That will help that group of people. And lastly, you want to make sure you follow up with notes, summaries from these conversations, be they one-on-one or in a group setting, because that's going to help the people that absorb best in written form to really understand where things are at. All in all, this takes time, of course, but you're going to find by doing this, you're going to get the information necessary to identify what do you need to do as a leader of this team to help your team be more effective. Where do you need to focus your time? What changes or improvements do you need to initiate? Do you need to reprioritize things? Do you need to offer additional resources or time? This is the only way to figure it out. And I promise you, if you follow these 3 steps I've given you, you're going to have much more success in helping your team adopt and accept change. Thanks again for watching. I'd really love to hear from you about how you applied these steps and or what other tips you have that you found help your team achieve higher levels of performance when it comes to dealing with change. So make sure you send me a quick note. Drop me an email, Shawn@casemoreandco.com, or leave a comment below and I'll get back to you quickly. Thanks again for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you again on our next video. Take care.